Michaela, no saint, triumphs over the devil by Barney Walsh. The devil's name is Gavin. He's this weird, monstrous thing, half snake, half toad, half dragon, half insect, half bird, half bat, half moth, half lots of other stuff too. A wriggly, odious green lump, a kind of amphibian, dragon-like worm. His eyes, all four of them, two in his head and two in his man-boobs where his nipples should be, are hard red jewels with black, soulless pits at their centres. His reptilian scales each ooze green slime at the edges. Vicious, hedgehoggy spikes run all down his spine, poking out through his office shirt, right to the tip of his pulsing, prehensile tail. Like, gross. They say the devil was once as beautiful as he now is foul. Michaela finds that hard to believe, though if it's true, he must have been pretty fucking beautiful. His name is Gavin. It says so on his ID card pinned to his shirt pocket, beside his tasteless tie. But to Michaela, he's simply the devil. That's what she's always called him, in her head. She knew right from her first day working here, because just look at him. One Friday evening, as work is ending for the day, a couple of weeks after she'd started at this minor admin job, the devil asks her out for a drink. But being as polite and normal-seeming as he can, his forked tongue flickering over and between the thin spikes of his teeth, his four glassy red eyes rolling all over her body as if he were preparing to feast, the barbed tip of his tail coiling and uncoiling. Michaela stops herself just barely from going, "Oh, gross! God, no way I'd ever go out with a creep like you!" Saying what she'd actually thought would have been, like, not wise, especially seeing as the devil is her immediate superior and this is Michaela's first job straight out of school, a job she already feels like she's only just hanging on to anyway. Instead, she makes some excuse, a feeble lie, doesn't meet his gaze, either of his gazes, turns and flees. She tries to forget him, to get his image out of her mind, as back at home at her parents' house, where she still lives, she sits watching stupid old silent movies, kind of funny, with her dad, all Friday evening. The next thing with the devil is one time when Michaela's alone in the break room. Everyone else who works here, it seems, smokes, so they're all outside in the designated area like a little cluster of chimneys, each polluting itself with heart disease and lung cancer and whatnot, readying themselves for hell. And Michaela's, for the moment, sat alone with her vending machine coffee and the cheese and tomato sandwich her mum made her that morning. And she's just fixing her makeup, when in her compact little mirror she sees the devil creeping up behind, slithering belly in the carpet towards her. She almost screams. She turns, instinctively shows him his own reflection in her hand, and at the sight of it, the sight of the repellent creature that he is, he shrieks, scurries off in fright, retreats through a crack in the wall back into his cave, or into his corner office, whatever you want to call it. The tiny mirror in Michaela's palm, like a shield of crystal, fending off the monster. Though sadly, it'll only work once, Michaela's sure. That's how magic goes. Lots of times after that, Michaela feels Gavin the devil's eyes on her, their touch a cold slime on her skin even when she can't see him. Though he doesn't come close to her, not for a while, not till she's let her guard down a bit and she's doing some photocopying in the print room, and then she feels a hand, if you can call it a hand, on her bottom. A reptilian kind of paw. She feels its cold, hard flesh, the webs between its digits, the claws at the tips of its fingers, resting lightly on the top of her thigh, the long thumb curling around her waist, implicitly threatening what deeper damage such claws might do. "All alone at last," the devil's voice hisses in her ear. She freezes, panicked. The photocopier is still whirring and flaring before her, spitting out hard copies of meaningless data projections for some upcoming meeting. "Don't you know you're mine?" the devil says. "Mine, all mine, all mine." His other scaly green arm snaking about her midriff, working its way down her front. "Get off me," she says, whispering it in her fear. "I'll scream." "You won't, though. You won't, you won't, you won't." His one hand squeezes her bum, the tips of its claws digging in just a little, the other rising now towards her breasts. And then he's giggling manically as she starts to struggle, turns around, tries to squirm from his grasp, elbow him away. Anyone might come in at any moment, but no one does. Has he locked the door? Why is there no one to help her? He pins her up against the photocopier, one scaly arm, more like a reptile's foreleg, actually, either side of her, their vulture's talons gripping the machine, his face up close into hers, his breath noxious. "Please," she says, her hands on his chest holding him back, and oh, gross! She can feel his body sweat slime even through his shirt, as bad as all those unblinking round eyes on her. His serpent's tail twists with delight. "You want to leave? Leave. I'm not stopping you." He stands there sneering as she wriggles out from between the revolting lump of his flesh and the photocopier, having to duck under his arm, finally breaking free. Then the print room door is bolted. She can feel him coming up behind her, writhingly as she figures it out, works the catch, then it's open and she's out, safe. Is she safe? Feeling his eyes on her as, burning with shame, she hurries back to her corner of the desk, hoping no one's noticed anything amiss, dreading what poisonous lies would pour from his wide, wide mouth if he were found out. How could her words stand up to his? This isn't the last of it, of course. There are lots more incidents, derogatory comments from his wide, leering, insect-like face. He keeps finding ways to catch her alone. "If you want this job," he hisses, "and God knows you need it, then you have to keep me happy, don't you?" A hand cuffing her breast as he's come up behind her again. His dick she can feel against her hip, pressing through his trousers and through her skirt. "Come on, I know you want it." Not meaning the job this time. "Let me tempt you." She tries to go. He holds her arm, the grip demonically strong. "Our little secret," he says, his agile tongue licking quickly once of her cheek before letting her go for now. Michaela's always been kind of shy, a bit nervous, socially awkward, a teeny bit scared of the world. And on the bus ride home, squeezed between the other commuters' bodies like the souls of the dead being ferried to hell, she suddenly realises that's why the devil is picking on her. Not because he finds her particularly attractive among all the other girls in the office, of course not, but because he thinks himself safe with her. Reckons she won't tell anyone. He calculates that she's quiet, vulnerable, not really got any friends at work. She's too timid and mild, too much of an angel to want to make a fuss, that he can have his bit of fun, his harmless fun, as he'd no doubt think of it. Harmless fun that's ruining her life without any danger coming to him. What does Michaela matter? She's no one, just a girl, the juniorest of junior staff, while he's on the way up, department manager soon, regional before too long, and she's nothing. And it's this realisation, more than anything else, this insight into how the devil's mind works, that finally pushes her, though it takes all her courage, into doing something, into making that fuss after all. At the sexual harassment and bullying in the workplace grievance session, the human resources guy representing her spends most of his time poring over the regulations and protocols like a devout man knelt at prayer, and he's not really very helpful. comes down to your words against his, he tells Michaela, and who's going to believe you, he might have well as added. But your words against his words doesn't sound so bad to Michaela. It's like a war in which the only weapons are words, like a trial of combat of words. And, okay, maybe this is a bit goofy of her, believing this. Her words happen to be true, so that's got to mean they're the stronger weapons, right? The HR guy shrugs, looks at her funny, turns to his notes. The devil is sat across the room next to his solicitor, totally smug and self-assured. Michaela avoids looking at him, mostly, though when she does once glance over, she finds all four of his eyes locked on her, like his head's eyes fixed on her face, hatefully, even as his lower eyes ogle her breasts, her legs, his forked tongue slipping in and out between his flesh-tearing teeth. How can we lose? She asked the guy meant to be on her side. I mean, look at how he's looking at me. He's sexually harassing me right now in the tribunal. What's wrong with him? God, those hideous eyes. How can this be happening? And she doesn't lose. It's the devil who loses his job. Relief rushes through Michaela as she realises she'll never have to see him again. Well, that's what she thinks, because the last thing is the next night when she comes out of work to find him lurking in the car park. A trap laid. She's been kept working late, extra paperwork and filing that she's pretty sure with hindsight the devil himself has arranged to be dumped on her, keeping her in the office till darkness has fallen. Crossing the car park to get to the bus stop, hoping they're not too infrequent at this late hour, she spots him skulking in the shadows, waiting for her. Plainly drunk, snarling his self-pity. His eyes glint redly in the night's murk like the spots on a four of diamonds, the eyes in his skull and the eyes in his chest. His two mouths are open, the one in his face and one in his belly, both sets of yellowish fangs catching what little moonlight there is. His dark mass, gone totally animalistic now office hours are done and he's unemployed, slithers from the shadows towards her, his clawed mitts reach for her. And this is when she's really at last like, okay, fine, enough. And just as she's done, metaphorically earlier in the tribunal by combat of words, she draws her weapon, reaches in her little shoulder bag to pull out a shimmering silver sword as long as she was tall, watching the unprecious gems of the devil's eyes widen with confusion, like, how'd she fit that in that? And then, with loathing and fear. And as the devil lunges forward, she swings at him righteously with her sword and strikes the fucker down with one blow. He can't hurt her. She feels like she's wearing golden armour. He howls in pain and defeat, just as in the tribunal he shouted with anger as she calmly gave her evidence. Howls in agony and defeat, crawling on the car park's concrete like the worm he is, pleading for mercy. But Michaela's no saint. Mercy is not what she deals in. She's finding to her delight. She pins him down with a spike of the heel, the devil's foul greenish black blood bubbling stinkingly from the wound, and raises her sword above her head to deal the killing blow, feeling her bright new wings unfold behind her.
Fantastic, thanks Lois. That is the end of our evening. I have just a couple of announcements to make before we finish. We have